Hey guys, thanks for checking in. You're watching The Naturalist Capitalist, and I'm Reed Coverdale, and I've got Sam calling in on the phone. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, it's going good, man.
Yeah, cool. So, I first connected with you on Twitter right around when I started my Twitter page and when I started doing, my YouTube channel, and before I took off at all, when I was still really small, and we sent some private messages back and forth, and we noticed on Twitter and through my YouTube videos that we had a lot in common. So why don't you just tell us about who you are and why you care about the political things you care about?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Sam, known on Twitter more so by the Libertarian. And like Reed said, we kind of got started getting more active on Twitter around the same time, and for me it was kind of sparked by it was sparked by Justin Amash's announcement. He was somebody I kind of actually started to really identify with his ideas with, and kind of brought me more so into the just the overall libertarianism as a philosophy. And honestly, up until then, I was not in any shape or form politically active by any means. But I've been aware of libertarianism for, I would say 12 odd years, and knew it lined up with me, and definitely held some of the beliefs. But then this past few months, I've, dove into, Liberty Twitter and the political scene overall, and definitely find some flaws with things, and but definitely find myself expanding my political knowledge overall. And and if you wanted just like a litmus test about what I believe, this isn't 100% said, but most of the time, if Reed believes it, it's pretty close to what I believe. I found out, which is what he was referring to. It's kind of interesting how often he says something and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I think.
That must mean you're a smart person then. That's what I'm going to say, at least.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
So, what about Justin Amash first brought you in? Was it the impeachment thing last year, or what event caught your attention with Justin Amash that started to get you interested?
Well, I was aware of Gary Johnson's campaign, and he kind of really, I didn't campaign for him. I wasn't politically active with it. Yeah. But I voted for him, and in the state I'm from, I'm from Oklahoma, we were able to achieve a 5% to get the Libertarian Party ballot access, which I was really proud of because I was a part of that, and we were able to push that forward. So, as elections come around, I was aware of, libertarian candidates, and there was a lot of, before Justin ever announced, there was a lot of people, a lot of libertarian chatter in the places that I kind of kept minimal notes on and minimal awareness about Justin Amash. Justin Amash he should join the LP. He should be our nominee. Way back, even before the impeachment stuff, he was rumor milled for a while, even for somebody who wasn't, diving into it. So I knew who he was through that more than anything. And as it started getting closer and closer, and the nominees, the LP presidential candidate race was starting to clear up and really solidify who was running, I was like, well, I guess it's not Amash, and so I started following who was running, and I was following, Mons and Hornberger and even Vermin and Jorgensen and all those guys. I was starting to follow it, kind of seeing who was going to lead the pack and who was going to end up being the one. And then whenever I saw that he announced his exploratory committee, that's whenever I really it kind of sparked a fire in me, and I kind of was like, all right, so this guy is, I've been aware of what he's been and what he stood for, and how principled he is, and how he truly just like calls things as they are, and doesn't play into the partisan game a whole lot or at all, really.
Right.
So seeing him jump in that way is what really kind of pulled me in even further, because I was aware of who the nominees were, and I saw where it was headed, and then he honestly threw a wrench in it all and just like got all this tumultuous stuff going, and then dipped out 3 weeks later.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so I just officially joined the Libertarian Party this year, and I've been an independent for a while, and that's mostly because I just hate party politics in general, and I am a believer that there should be no political parties, actually, but given the landscape that we have, and given the parties that we have, the Libertarian Party, to me, is the only vessel forward in smashing the duopoly, and I agree with a supermajority of the issues that the Libertarian Party aligns with. I mean, it's very similar. So I decided that if I want to make a difference and I want the party to grow, I want it to be more mature, I want it to be more realistic, whatever adjective you want to ascribe to it, I have to join, and I have to try to make a difference. So that's what when the CARES Act went through in March, and I just saw literally almost all of Congress and the Senate vote for that bill with very little resistance. Just a couple people. Justin Amash was one of them, and then Thomas Massey. And other than that, it was a clean sweep straight through, and I said, okay, I've got to do something, because these Democrats and Republicans, they just don't care about us. And so now I'm in this for the long haul. I mean, regardless of what happens in November, I'm sticking around, and I'm going to try to apply pressure where I can and try to make a difference and get change. Is that kind of where you are too, or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm in it for the long haul. Much like you, I joined the LP this year as well. I actually joined it the night. I think I joined it the night I was watching. I think it was like the John Stossel presidential candidates debates on YouTube. That was the night that I joined. I just remember because it was the same night as that debate. But I definitely see the issues with partisanship overall, and even sometimes I'm guilty of it. But I think the LP is definitely the avenue to go to break apart the duopoly, and much like what they talk about, if we do get into federal power, is abolish a lot of the federal agencies, and do away with all this overstepping and over involvement of the government. I think it'd be nice to also see them working a way to abolish the setting, the election standards that make parties necessary. Yeah. Because parties at this point are necessary in the system we have.
Right.
Because of how ballot access works and funding works and things like that, which is just all part of this convoluted system that's just stacking blocks on top of each other and just hoping it doesn't fall, and using Scotch tape to make sure it sticks up there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you know, I worked on Tulsi Gabbard's campaign in the primary, and the same issues we're facing right now with Joe Jorgensen with ballot access, or not so much ballot access, but definitely with polling and all those sorts of things. I totally saw that with Tulsi. I mean, they just threw every roadblock they could at her. But now with Joe Jorgensen, she's facing all those issues, but then she also, has to fight for ballot access in every single state. And, she's completely ignored. I mean, I remember in 2016 when Gary Johnson was running, he had a few appearances on CNN. He had a bunch on Fox News. He had interviews with like Samantha Bee and just tons of people like all over the place. I mean, I've only seen 2 or 3 interviews with Joe Jorgensen. I mean, there was John Stossel, and then Ben Shapiro had her on his show for like 10 minutes just over the phone. And then like other than that, I mean, there's no exposure. It's crazy voter suppression. I mean, it's just it's crazy.
It's definitely manipulating the candidates because, of course, they wanted Gary on there. I loved Gary. He did a lot for us, but he was a goofball.
Right.
Of course, you're going to put Gary on there.
Right.
It's not going to help him a ton to put the guy on there who's, if you saw I think it was a debate on, was it PBS with Jill Stein where they're talking about something regarding marijuana and heart attacks or something. I forget what they were talking about. And he, in a mocking way, just like goes, ooh, and actually he has a heart attack and falls down on the ground in the middle of what was a third-party presidential debate. It's like, yeah, put him on the TV. That's what they want. They want him on the TV.
Right.
They're not going to put somebody like Joe who's well-spoken. She may not be the fieriest of speakers, but she's well-spoken and she communicates her ideas clearly. And, that like all the interviews and all the speaking engagements she's had, there's not been anything close to any sort of faux pas or flub. Yeah, mainstream media does not want to put her on there. It'll legitimize her even more. That's why people, that do have her on are a little bit fringe, even if they are a little more mainstream. You got people like Kat Temp, I think, is wanting to get her on her show. I even think Kennedy Nation, she's wanting. I've heard rumors of that. Just seeing things on Twitter, I've seen things. So hopefully, maybe there's some movement that's going to happen, but it's slow going for sure.
Yeah. Another thing that I've noticed this year that I haven't before is there's a lot of left-leaning people who are joining the party and who are interested, and that is scaring some people in the Libertarian Party, which I think is great because I think we've been cast as like a Republican light party where if you look at our platform, it's not Republican light. I mean, it's just as much left as it is right. I mean, it's just it's the idea of the state being removed from your life and allowing people to trade and live and just do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting each other. I mean, there's nothing Republican or Democrat about that. Have you noticed that too? Is that something that's been kind of entertaining to watch, all the former Republicans maybe just freaking out what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of entertaining, but it's also just like, it's kind of disheartening because like it's disheartening in a way because because I came from the Republican side. I was never like registered or anything like that, but I grew up in a Republican household.
Yeah, me too. So
I think it just kind of bothers me that it's like exposing some people who are disingenuous, and then people grab onto that, latch onto that, and say, "Oh, look how illegitimate the LP is." Anyway, they were just Republicans,
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bothers me about it is that. I mean, obviously you're weeding out the ones who, were milquetoast supporters anyway, which is fine. But it also gives a credence to people who are like, look, see, once you get a little bit of liberal or a little bit of left in there, look how many people are in an uproar.
Yeah.
They were Republican-like. It was a shelter for Republicans, and now it's not a shelter for Republicans anymore,
Yeah.
And I can see how that happened. I don't know what the political landscape looked like. I don't have any insider awareness, honestly, but I have to think that the Tea Party movement, the small government, whenever that kind of floundered a little bit, I mean, that's what brought Amash in, to Congress too, but when that kind of fizzled out, I have to think a lot of those Republicans, or a lot of those people were Republicans, and once that kind of fizzled out, I have to think that a lot of them went over to the Libertarian Party.
Yeah. And
they kind of felt like, well, this is pretty close. It's small government. It's this and that, And now the left is also seeing how not left the
right.
Democratic Party is, and how less they align with their progressive beliefs, because they're just a big corporate party, just like the Republicans, and they're also seeing the Libertarian Party, the only other large legitimate party, is embracing a lot of the things that they see, a lot of similar progressive things. Like you've always said with Tulsi Gabbard, she's very, very libertarian leaning in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of people who identify with that. And but the stigma of, well, libertarians are Republican-like scares those people away. But then there's people who pass that and come in, and this is a cluster right now. I like that it's shifting and changing, because it's solidifying the base and bringing in more people, But it is just kind of giving more and more evidence to the people who are naysayers, the people with big power and big voices saying, well, look, they're always going to be rolling over on each other and getting mad about the things they say that they agree with people on.
Yeah, I look at this stage as growing pains for the movement, which we have to go through, because we are never going to be legitimate as the right Libertarian Party. I mean, we're never going to get anywhere. I mean, and we're not going to take over the Republican Party. That should be abundantly obvious now. I mean, a lot of people are saying that, oh, look at the Republican Trump Party. It's anti-war now. It's more open to, criminal justice reform. And I'm like, this guy wants to execute drug dealers, and we just almost went to war with Iran in January because we missile striked Soleimani unprovoked, and it's like, you're telling me that we're taking over this party? Like, if that is a sign of success, I don't want any part of it. So I mean, in my mind, we should be the biggest party, the biggest movement, because we kind of as you just alluded to, we can be more right than the Republicans while simultaneously being more left than the Democrats, because and we should be able to form a coalition that would absolutely crush everyone. So I think what we're going through right now, even though it kind of sucks, it's a necessary stage to get through, and then we can start actually building a movement of right and left libertarians against the authoritarian state.
Yeah, I think I'm going to surprise you here, but I agree with you.
Yeah. So, you're talking about starting a podcast, and you posted about it on Twitter a little bit. So I was wondering what your plan is. Or is it going to be a video or audio? Is it going to be on YouTube? Is it going to be on Spotify? Or like what type of format is it going to be? And then what are you going to talk about mostly?
It's going to be audio. It's going to be short form. I'm still exploring what the different podcast software is, like apps and stuff. I believe it's going to be able to be posted on like Spotify and where you can find podcasts. It's going to be short form. It's going to be kind of a mixed bag of what I kind of feel like talking about. It's kind of actually harkening back to my days when I used to do video blogs on YouTube.
Okay.
Like 12 years ago, like in 2008 and 2009 and stuff, way back, where I just kind of sat in front of a camera and talked. And I've always wanted to get back in that with a little bit of intention. And kind of, I was talking to you about about it before the show. It's gonna be varied. I may do some interviews. It's not always gonna be political. It's gonna be, it'll have some current events. It'll be a lot of opinion pieces. Hopefully, the biggest goal is that it'll be fun and entertaining. And I'm going to kind of shape it as it goes, see how it evolves, see what people respond to and like, kind of like how your show has evolved. But usually, I'm thinking it's going to be anywhere from 5 to 15-minute episodes, and if the subject matter is intriguing enough and in-depth enough, or if it's an interview that could go longer, I'm going to shoot for about mid-September, around the 18th, somewhere between 18th and 20th. Probably going to try to get the first episode out there. Yeah.
Cool. So, in the meantime, you guys can follow him on Twitter. I'll put a link in the description to his Twitter profile. But why don't you just close out by telling us about how to follow you right now on Twitter? Like, what are you doing on Twitter right now? What's your @ name?
Oh, yeah. At Twitter, at the LIBROtarian. Just go give me a follow. It's if you follow on Twitter, it'll be. I want the podcast to be kind of similar. There's some really just like silly stuff on there, a little bit of trolling sometimes, and then just some like real political discussion that I like to engage in sometimes. So hopefully you find it entertaining.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you and seeing your podcast. And we'll maybe have you back on the show again later once the podcast actually starts to take form, and maybe I'll end up being in one of your podcasts for you. So
absolutely, man.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, Sam. We'll check in with you later.
All right. See you.